Right troops, welcome back. This is mostly a channel update because I've been missing for a while. Although I haven't been away, I've just been working. It's a very busy time of year this time of year. And also I've had a slight equipment failure. Computer wise, I've deleted accidentally a lot of material. I could recover some of it but not all of it. And that's partly because I'm running obsolete equipment, so don't be impressed by what you see in the background, because all of these screens have come out of skips, as have two of the computers they're connected to. The oldest of which, the centre one, is running Windows XP, which expired a long time ago. So because I'm running fairly old hardware, I've gone to running a free operating system called Linux. And although I've been using Linux for a while, the programs I need to edit and manipulate photographs and things, I'm not really used to those in Linux, so I'm having to learn a lot. So that's one reason. The other reason is, as you know, I've got the ongoing project with the colloidal silver, and I've almost really sorted that out. I've had a bit of problem producing my own distilled water, and I've been working on a new condensing unit, and there'll be more of this in a future video. Little things I have to do with that yet, because I'm very reluctant to spend too much money. And when I went down to the hardware store and they told me how much they wanted for flexible tubing that would take the steam through the centre of that thing and run some water through as well, I just wasn't prepared to pay it. I thought I can go and find some, so I have done, and that's still something to work on. Anyway, so first of all, I got to say a big thanks. This top I'm wearing, this isn't my doing. This is my friend Paul of ManticoreKnives doing. So thank you for that, Paul. But when I look at it closely, it's very well designed. Anyway, so back to the theme of raking around in skips, and I've come out with a lot of natural fibre cordage. So the theme of this video, as well as being just a general update, is the common whipping knot, or stopping your cordage from unravelling. And with modern synthetic ropes, you can just get a lighter and heat up the end of the cordage, and it'll melt, and you can stick it all together, and that'll stop it from unravelling. But you can't do that with natural cordage. So with natural cordage, you have to put a knot on the end. And it's, in this case, they're different knots, but I'll just show you. So the knot I'm using here is just the common whipping knot, where I've used some much narrower diameter cordage just to hold the end together to stop it from unravelling, because most common cordages, there are many exceptions, but a lot of them are made out of 3 strands wound together, and if there's nothing binding the 3 ends together, they'll just start unravelling themselves, and you'll just end up with a right mess. So there are different ways of finishing the ends, and some of them involve sewing, but this one is very simple, very quick, doesn't really need any other tools, although sometimes a pair of pliers can be handy if you've wrapped the end very tight. So that's what I'm going to go through today. While I'm going through it, I'm going to use a new tool I've got, and I won't call it a knife, I'll just call it a tool, because it's not a knife as such, and this is only part of it. It's more a multi-tool, and you only see some of it, it's not all here, but for the purposes of this exercise I'm just using it to cut the cordage. We'll go into this in more detail in a later episode. It's it's an ongoing experiment, or work in progress, or research if you like, by ManticoreKnives, because he does experiment a lot. That's how you learn things. Right, so cordage then, the common whipping knot. Right then, so we've got our natural cordage, and as you can see it's made out of 3 smaller pieces of cordage, which in themselves are made of 3 even smaller pieces of cordage. So left to its own devices, over time this end's going to unravel and you're going to effectively lose cordage. So we need to stabilise the end. We can't do it with the lighter because we're just going to set fire to it, so we're going to have to do a whip around the end. So we're doing the common whipping knot. So I don't want to work with a lot of this small diameter whipping line, or line that I'm using for whipping, so I'm just going to cut it a bit smaller, or cut the section off the end, which will mean there's a bit of wastage, but it'll be a lot easier to work with. Now these 3 larger pieces of cordage are wrapped around in this direction, so I want to whip it in the opposite direction. So to start me whipping, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this smaller diameter cordage and I'm going to fold it back on itself so it forms a loop, and technically that's called a bite. It's just a loop, and I'm going to put the loop towards the end, frayed end of the main cordage, just lay it on it like that, and then I'm going to start wrapping round the longer end in the opposite direction to the lay of the main cordage. And initially I'm just going to put 3 wraps on, just 3 quick wraps, 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to hold it there, those 3 wraps, and I'm just going to snug it up a bit, tighten it up a bit, and when I made sure it's all fairly in order, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then I'm just going to put this loose end through the loop. And I'm just going to hold it with my finger there, and then if I go back to the loop sticking along the main line of cordage, I can pull on this loop. You can see it pulls and nips up. I've now nipped up that free end. And if I continue pulling on this end, it's going to pull that loop and that free end under the main whipping. And I'm aiming to pull it under until it gets somewhere near the middle. And it's hard to know where that is, but you just got to guess it by distance, and sometimes you can see a little bump, but quite often you can't. And this is where pliers can come in handy, because if you've whipped it tight, it might be quite an effort to get it pulled in. So I'm just going to use the pliers here. I mean, you can use your hand. Let's see if we can do it with our hand. There we go. Okay, so it takes quite a bit of force with your hand, and so pliers can come in handy because you can end up cutting this thin cord into your hand. But now you've got to pull it until you guesstimate it's somewhere central. So we're just going to pull it a little bit further through. Of course, if you pulled it too far, you'd pull it right out the other end, which is not what you want. So we reckon that's it. We reckon it's somewhere about there, which is somewhere in the middle, and that's fairly tight. So now I can cut off these free ends. And I can cut off the excess, but don't cut it right up to the whipping. Leave about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, depending on how thick your cordage is. And then that'll fray out a little and stop the cordage from the first loop from dropping off, which would loosen everything, and the rest would soon follow. Now if I had some birch bark or resin glue, I would put it on there just to stabilise the whole thing, but I don't have any. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a blob of, or a couple of blobs of super glue on there just to hold it all in place, just so as it cannot go anywhere. Yeah, that's definitely stabilised that when the super glue dries. And if you're not putting super glue on your fingers to stick up cuts and things, super glue can take quite a long time to dry. In a dry environment, it can take a long time to dry, so just put that aside somewhere to dry in the air over time. So that's the common whipping knot, and I'll find that useful because I've got quite a lot of this natural cordage to do, and it goes quite well on with my pack frame, which I'm still using. Right, so so that just about wraps it up then. So that's where I've been and what I've been doing these last couple of weeks. Hopefully it won't be so long because it's the dog's birthday tomorrow, so I hope to be going somewhere worth filming, so you might see a bit of that before the new year. But if I don't see you before the new year, I'd just like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And we've got to be thinking about those people in Australia at the moment, where those horrendous fires are. They've got massive temperatures. It's a shame we can't give them a bit of our rain and take a bit of their heat, and then we'd all be a lot more comfortable, but that isn't how it works, so we've just got to put up with what we've got. Anyway, just close by saying a big thank you to Paul of ManticoreKnives for the t-shirt, and also we'll be seeing a bit more of what this is all about. And I'd like to say a big thank you to those people that have subscribed to the channel, and those people that haven't subscribed to the channel and are just watching the channel, and especially to those people who comment, even if it's negative. And if you do take the time and bother to comment, I will reply. So until the next one then, all the best, and I'll catch you in the not too distant future. Just one more thing. The right hand screen here, you can see what's called a waterfall of various frequencies. I'm gathering this over the internet, but Andy Outdoors has put a number of videos up recently on communications, which is quite an important thing, communications. Radio communications, and he's got his amateur radio license. Now, I am quite familiar with radio operations. I've just been looking into, as a result of Andy's video, the amateur radio license. I don't want to join a club because I really don't have the time. So I may at some stage sit the license. I've gone through some mock material on the internet, because the internet's a fabulous thing, isn't it? So thanks for that, Andy, and it is a thing I've got in mind, and I do have an interest in it, and we'll see.